Hello, my name's Anthony. I'm in ENME 272 section 0201. This is the exam remake. This is part 1, the 2 parts, and then the drawings for them. So first here, I open up a part file. By the way, I'm speaking in past tense because I recorded this on a school computer earlier, and I'm just voicing over it now. But yeah, so I'm making the main body first. That's what I'm going to start with. So I was getting a couple errors with the spacing here. Picking inches, that's what the drawing says. We're using okay, so I've created the part file for my main body, and I'm gonna start off with the blend feature. I'm gonna make the 4 surfaces to make the shape that we have. Orient to sketch view. And then I'm just gonna draw a little hexagon here and then do the dimensions afterwards. Just want to orient that top line first, doing it sort of one at a time here. I'm going to make all the angles 120 degrees on a hexagon. And I have to delete a constraint here because it's locked at 150 degrees. So I'm making sure they're all 120. And I'm also going to make this at the x-axis there. So that way the hexagon is centered. And then I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to fix up my dimensions here. So I'm going to make sure this is half of each side length the center. Yeah, I appeared to be a little off the sketch view. I'm not sure how I got there, but okay. So that is the first part here. And I'm going to check some of these dimensions to make sure it's all correct. And there we go. Now it's a good hexagon. And it looks like I'm just checking these sides and angles to make sure it's uniform throughout. And it appears to be here. We have 120 all around and 1.5 for the edges. I'm going to start off by making the middle part with the 4 hexagons using the blend feature, and then I'm going to make 2 revolves to cut the hole in the middle and make the circles on the ends. So now I'm going to make my second plane. I'm reading the dimension off the thing here. I had to switch back from my other computer to the file. And it's 1.5 inches away. And now I'm going to sketch this other surface, which is just another hexagon, but closer in. So I'm going to sort of start the same way. Make sure it's centered. I also started with the top right corner so that way I wouldn't get any twisting action. See, those 2 arrows are lined up. And I'm going to make all the angles 120 degrees to start. And then do the same with the sides, make them all uniform. It's 0.75. And then this is half of that to the side. Got a couple more dimensions to make here to make sure it's a uniform hexagon. And then that appears to be correct. I'm just checking a couple sides. Okay, so now you can sort of see the shape coming together. I'm basically going to do that twice more to make the full main body part. So I'm inserting the third, which is 2.5 away from the second. And it's basically just going to be the same thing. I'm starting at the top right corner again. I check to see if I can make a reference there. Anyways, I'm starting at the top right corner again. So that way there's no twisting going on. Okay. And that's like roughly the same, but I'm going to make it exact. Of course, I'd have problems if I did it otherwise. So I'm making all these angles 120 again, and then the sides 0.75 inches and centered. And that's the last dimension there I need. And okay, and you can sort of see the shape taking form here. And then the last one is 2 inches off. I got the first part of the exam on my first attempt right, so this is all just sort of the same stuff I did here. Making another hexagon. Making all the side lengths 1.5 and the angles 120. Need to make sure it's uniform like the other one. And then this should finish out the shape. I'm just going to check here to make sure that the rest of the dimensions are right. Need to add one more constraint right there. And then I should be good. And that's the first sort of shape, the base shape that the main body is going to have. So I'm going to check that. And then next here I'm going to do the revolve. Just pausing for a second to plan my next move here. Okay, so I'm going to use the revolve feature here and select the right plane, or the front plane. I was just checking through to make sure to see if I had to define the axis of rotation. I figure out later it's fine, but yeah. I'm sort of playing around with the feature here. So now I'm back in the sketch. And I'm going to make these two little circles. I'm going to make the one on the top first. That's 1/2 inch more extended. Just trying to sort of read the features here. The drawing was a little confusing at first. Okay, and then I add a line here. That was half the diameter of that circle that's on the drawing for the top view. Sorry about all the pauses. I was sort of just looking back to look at the drawing and make sure I was doing it correctly and trying to figure out what I was doing next. Okay. I'm going to create a couple more lines here. That's half the diameter of the other circle they show in the hidden line. And then that's 1/4 of an inch. And this is going to set up that sort of divot before the circular arc on the end. I'm going to make that line up. And I'm also going to make a line to connect those so that I can get a solid shape. And then the last feature of this revolve I need to make is the arc connects this two and makes a half circle. I'm in the wrong arc feature. Yeah, I was not going to be able to achieve it with that. I needed to go to center and ends here. Yep, there we go. And that's the arc. And you can see that's a solid shape, so that's what I'm going after. And then I'm basically just going to repeat this for the bottom side. The same little drawing here because they're both the same on the drawing. Just going to copy the same exact dimensions here. Okay, it's looking all the same. I was just checking on those dimensions. I need to add that dimension right there. And then I'm going to add that little arc. I forgot where I put that little line. Forgot I needed one there. And I'm just going to connect the arc there. And that gives us a little divot and half circle shape. And then I need the axis of revolution here. And I realize there is no axis here. So I'm gonna make a little center line so that way I can get an axis of revolution. And that should be good. And there we have it. Those are the two ends, the top and bottom. And I'm going to check that off. And that's, you can sort of see the shape there. Or I mean, not sort of. That basically is the shape besides the hole in the middle. So I'm just going to do one more revolve here to get that little hole in the middle. Okay, just gonna make that little indented shape there. The hole seems to be thicker on the ends and then it's thinner in the middle. And I'm just gonna close that up to make the solid shape. And then add the dimensions here. That is 1/2 inch. Or no, excuse me, 1 inch. Oh no, it was a 1 inch diameter. Okay, 1/2 inch was right. And then 1/4 inch for the smaller one. And then I want these holes to sort of line up where the hexagons are. So I need to make those dimensions right. I'm just adding together a couple dimensions on the sheet. And then I'm checking to make sure this last one's correct, and it should be. Okay. My work there is done. And then I need to select the axis of revolution. And that already defaults to a cut, so I'm all good. And that's the first shape there. Oh, and then now I'm gonna add a couple datums to make the views on the drawing. So I'm gonna put one at 2 hexagons. and there was never a dimension specified for the bottom hexagon, so I sort of just took it to be somewhere near the middle. I'm not really sure if that was supposed to be like that. Or well, actually initially here I put it right at the hexagon, but then when I made the drawing they were too close and I realized that wasn't correct and wasn't how it's supposed to be done. So I did come back and change it later. Oh, and then also I'm gonna add the other section view for the 3D figure. I was just toggling around here a little bit. Kind of forgot how to do it at first. Okay. I'm going to name it A because I'm drawing. It's section A. And here we go. Finally figured it out, and I need to make my lines for cutting. Okay, and that's the cutout that I'm looking for on the drawing. So I'm just going to leave that there. And now I can save this part file and finally get started on the drawing here. "17 minutes for the part there was definitely quicker than my first time around." Okay, now I want to make sure I get the right drawing sheet. And then my name always does this, so I'm going to fix that. It's a little too long for the box. So I need to fix the font. I think the computer was starting to get a little slow because I was recording. It was being a little laggy. Okay. And then I'm specifying inches here as the units. And now I'm going to go import. First I'm going to do the top and front views. And the scale's a little off. I didn't realize this yet. I'm going to go fix it later. You'll see later I end up fixing it. But yeah, and then I'm going to toggle around here to make sure that it's hidden. Or that we only see like, there that we see the hidden lines. I think this is just Creo being a little buggy. I was a little confused at where the shapes went. And there we go, I've got hidden now. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom one, or the front view. Okay. Those are the first two drawings on there. And then next I'm going to add these two hexagon views. And make sure I can see my datums to select them. Or actually, I'm starting with my detailed view. I guess I just saw that and decided to do that. And then I'm gonna, once it's made here, I'm moving it to the bottom right corner, which is where it goes in the drawing. And then I'm gonna add the 3D view. So I need to go find that cross section I made, and that's backwards. I need to flip that. I got kind of confused. I forgot where that button was. I remembered eventually that it was the flip button right on the top. And there we go. I think I got it. Yeah, I just need to click apply there. Okay. There we are. So I'm good with that. Except the orientation is incorrect. So I'm going to have to go back into the part file and make a new orientation, similar to the one on the drawings sheet. I just want to orient that right. Make sure it's as close as possible. Then I'm going to call this 3D view. Now if I close and save that, I always keep my part files up because I know I'm going to have to go back to them. And 3D view is there, and it's all good. Except for the hatch lines and the hidden lines there. So yeah, I'm going to go here and change that to no hidden. It looks cleaner. And then I'm going to make these hatch lines more apparent, just like the drawing. And that looks about right. It's close enough. Okay, now I have my main views here. And at this point I realize I need to change the scales. So I'm changing all of the scales now, as the scale is specified on the drawing. Need to change that to 1. I'm just finishing up with the rest of the scales. And that's the parent view, so that should dictate the other one. I'm fixing the spacing. And at this point I realize I need to make some section cuts for the 2 views that come off of that front view. So I'm just going to call these B and C. I'm going to add those 2 revolve views in. That one's B. Very good. And then the next one should be C. Okay. And that is the issue I was talking about, where it is too close. So now I'm going to go back to the part file and change that datum, because I realized that's not what was specified on the drawing here. I'm sort of checking to see, like, did I do everything right here? Okay. And yeah, I'm just going to edit this here. It's a small decimal, it's supposed to be 0. Anyway, I offset it 1 from the datum, or 0.5 actually. I went with. And that's my C right there. I'm just checking the drawing to make sure that's right. So I'm going to change that to C. And there we go, that spacing looks a lot better now. That's what the drawing specified. And I have my two revolved views here for those sections. I'm just going to change this to make it a little easier to read, keep up with the formatting. And now I'm going to place the center lines on here. Add center lines for every circle here. And I'll adjust those later because those go way too far out. And I decide here that these aren't the correct dimensions I need. Those are just way too many, so I'm going to go back and do those manually. I applied the center lines there. And I'm going to make that a bit clearer. Get rid of the datums and axes. And then I'm going to fix these center lines to make it more correct. Okay, and then next I'm going to start adding my dimensions. That should be a diameter value. I'm just going to flip that arrow right there to match the drawing. And I'm going to make sure these are filled arrows. Okay, I made a mistake there. I put open, and I realized it soon after. I made a couple dimensions after that, though. I'm going to dimension the sides. And now I'm going to fix these arrows here. I'm going to make sure those are filled. Okay, and then I'm just going to finish up the dimensions on these revolved views. I need to make sure that's a diameter and put the arrow on the outside. Make sure those sides are correct. And now I'm going to start adding the dimensions for this front view. Alright, those are the dimensions I need there. I'm just making sure the arrows are the correct orientation. There's a 1/2 inch there. All those dimensions are correct. And now I'm going to dimension the detailed view here. Make sure those are consistent with the drawing. And then need to show a 1/4 inch there. And that should be good for the detailed view. I have a few more dimensions to make on the top view. Okay. I'm going to add these diameters here. Need to flip it from the default radius. And then finally that hidden circle there. Okay, and I have my 3 diameters here. And that should wrap it up for the first drawing. Again, way quicker than the first time I did the exam. So I'm going to add it to my folder I made here of the redo files. Okay, and now I have the first part in the drawing. And I'm going to make the second part here, which is the spring. Well, I'm going to first export this to a PDF, just so I have it if need be. It's also kind of force of habit from the homeworks. Computer was sort of lagging because of the video recording. And here we go, that's my first drawing. Okay, I'm going to download and save that. I'm just checking here to make sure everything's consistent. Okay, and I'm going to put this in my exam 2 redo folder. And now I'm going to make a new file for the spring. Make sure I uncheck the default template. And this one is also going to be in inches here. Okay, I'm going to use a helical sweep here to make the spring. Make my first sketch here on the right plane. I'm going to first make the line for it to follow. I'm going to add a center line first and designate it as the axis of rotation, and then make the line for it to follow the ellipse sort of shape that the spring is. Okay, and these dimensions are way too large. I'm going to fix these. That should be a 6 right there. And then it's 3 away to make it centered. And then this is a diameter of 4. Okay, and that line appears to be correct. And now I'm actually going to draw my ellipse here. Looks like I have these center lines to work with. Go to the ellipse feature, center and axis. Okay. And that's 1/2 inch, and then the other dimension is 1/4 inch. I'm going to okay that. And that looks like the same shape we have, except I did need to change the pitch ever so slightly to 0.625 inches. Okay, and that's the shape that we're going for here. Shade that so it's easier to see. And there's the spring. I'm going to save this part file. Eventually going to go back to make the section view. But now I'm going to start the drawing. Just call that spring as well. I'm going to change my name on the table. I have to do this every time. Make sure it's small enough to fit in its box, just so it looks okay. And I was going to add the units here, but on the drawing that's on the exam file, it doesn't specify the units. So I just sort of left it for consistency purposes. I did make the file in inches, however, though, because I know this is inches. Not sure if I was supposed to add the units or not, but I just didn't add it because the exam file didn't have it, and I wanted to remain consistent. So I'm gonna make our section view here. Selected the wrong plane there. I decide, let's go back to the spring file and just make the plane here, and this, or the section view. First need to name that. And there's A, and that looks good as to what the drawing specifies. Okay. And I'm going to go back to this drawing here. And I'm going to add this. Start off with the front view of the section. And I'm going to make this the 2D cross section, which is A. And that looks right. Just need to clean it up a little bit. Get rid of the axes and datums. And I'm going to change the scale to what the drawing specifies. And that's 0.625. Okay. So now I have my section view. I'm going to change these. Make sure that you can tell there's hatched lines here, just like the drawing has. And there's not going to be one on the bottom left because there's no cut there. That's where it starts. Okay. Just going to make that nice away from there. And now I'm going to make my detailed view of this little link right here. Just going to draw a rough circle around it. And there's detail A. And I'll put that on the bottom left corner like the drawing says. And change the scale on that. And now I'm gonna add some dimensions in. I realize there's no automatic centerline dimension there. I'm a little confused as first. I end up just making an axis later. But first I'm gonna add some dimensions here. There's the pitch dimension. And I'm going to change where that rounds off at because it's not enough of the drawings at once. And I'm going to add a prefix saying pitch. Okay, I'm just going to move that so you can see it. Also, I need to make sure my arrows are all solid. Filled. Okay, now we have these filled arrows. They'll load in a second, but I'm going to add the next dimensions. I tried to get the length through here. Realized it's too short. That's not the length it's asking for. So I'm going to try it there and be surprised again that's not the length it's asking for. I seem to be a little confused there, so I'm going to do this next dimension here, which is, oh, that's actually the wrong dimension because that was from end to end. We want to make sure it's a diameter dimension. So it looks like I sort of put that to the side to finish these dimensions here. I'm going to end up going back to the regular view and adding those other dimensions in. And there's a 1/4 of an inch. Arrows should all be good. And now I'm a little stuck here. Not sure exactly how to get these to 2 dimensions and the center line. And then I realize I can take away the section view for a second. And that should solve my problems. And that doesn't give us the length either. I need to make sure I'm getting, yep, right there. Okay, well that's actually too long. It's not the right dimension it's asking for either. So I'm going to go here, make sure I'm getting the actual points instead of the whole arcs. And there we go. That's our 6-inch dimension that we're looking for all along. So I'm going to add that there. And I'm going to dimension the radius here. I mean the diameter. Sort of confused. There's no center point there. And this is going to not work either. That's too long because it's dimensioning the ellipses as well. But I'm just looking for the diameter value from the axis of rotation. And I realize, oh, that was on the automatic ones there. So I can just apply that one. without worrying about the rest. And I check for my center line, which still isn't there. I'm going to put this back to section view. I have to redo the hatched lines as well. Just trying to select those, it's giving me trouble. I just noticed I needed to clean that up a little. Make it consistent with the drawing. Add some room there. And I'm going to go so I'm not selecting the view every time, and there we go. Now I should be able to select and make the spacing on this less in between. And there we go. That's the spacing that's on the drawing. And all I have left to do here is add a center line, which I'm a little confused as to how to add right there. Sort of looking around. I eventually remember I can just go and make an axis. A little stuck here thinking of previous homeworks. How did I do this last time? And here we are. Make an axis. I'm going to make sure the planes are visible here so I can show it as the intersection between two planes. And there we are. Make sure I save that. And now, there's our axis. And we have our center line. Very good. I'm going to fix these dimensions to make sure they're consistent with the drawing. And I'm going to save and export that drawing file. Didn't want to replace what I had there, so I just called it Spring PDF. There we are. And now I have the drawings done for the two parts. And this is part 2 now. I'm going to do the assembly and the exploded views. So my first step here is to add the parameters for each part. I'm going to worry about that now and not have to do it later. So I'm going to add part number. Just checking the table to see what I needed. Part number, which is a string. A001. Gonna add price, I believe, next. Okay, we have $350. And I'm going to go to the other part and do the same. Part number. Change that to a string. And then price. That's a real number. And now I'm going to make my assembly file. I'm just going to call it exam2. That's the description on the drawing. I'm going to add my name here. And from the description. Okay, so I'm first going to bring in this main body and fix it right there. And that yellow shows that it's locked. Okay, and now I'm going to bring in the spring part. And I need to add a couple constraints here. And I'm going to realize in a second not to do the axes. Sort of trying to see where these other axes are. They're not showing up. Okay. And that's not the correct button. And that's not going to help anything either. Okay, that's not going to help anything. So I end up deciding to just bring it back in. Okay. And start off with coincident, even though it would automatically do it. And yet again, I realize the axes are not what I'm looking for, rather it is the datums. So I'm going to make sure these datums line up. And that's going to end up being wrong as well, because that would lock it in that orientation. And then I'm going to run into problems right there. And it could not be coincident. Who knew? Okay, yep. I'm going to realize this one's causing a problem here. And there we are. It is now straight. Okay, so that is lined up. Oh, no, I decided to redo the whole thing. Okay, why not? And I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'll line it up in that direction first. And line it up there. Make sure that's coincident, not normal. There we are. Now it's starting to look correct. Okay. And I'm going to want to make the spring go about right in the middle. So for this third one, first I need to find the planes. But once I find these planes, I'm going to do an offset of 3. Because the spring is 6 inches long, so that'll put it right in the middle. Go to distance. And type in 3, and there we have it. That's the correct assembly. And it's looking good. I still need to do the exploded view and then the 2 drawings. First, I'm going to save this view right here. I'm going to go to View Manager. I'm going to just call this 3D view as well. And now I need to remember, where do I do the exploded view again? Looking through buttons. Not publish geometry, that's definitely not it. Not the exploded view button. Okay. That is not what I wanted. It is here, yes, now I remember. It's gonna call it exploded. And I'm gonna edit it. And I'm gonna make it just like the exploded view on the drawing we have. Okay, and that looks about right. And I need to save it, okay. And now it is saved. Yeah, I don't want to make a third one there. Okay. So I see I have my exploded correct. And I'm going to make my new drawing for this assembly. And this is the final drawing for the exam. I'm going to start off by making sure my name fits in the box. And this one does have the dimensions specified, so I'm going to do inch. And then I'm going to add my assemble view in the 3D view orientation that I created. And I'm going to change the scale on here to what the drawing says. That would be 0.625. Okay, and now we're looking good. I'm going to move that to create room for the table eventually. I'm actually going to do the exploded view first before I do the table. I'll make that node hidden and then do the exploded view. And we're going to add another sheet for the exploded view. Keep it on the same file. Make sure my name fits there. Add the units, an inch. And now it's time to add the exploded view in. So I go over down to view display. Oh, yeah, view type to make sure the orientation's right. And then view states to go to the exploded view I created. And there we have it. That's the exploded view. I just need to change the scale to make sure it's the same as the sheet. Check the sheet over here. We go 0.5, and that looks right. And there we go. That's the exploded view sheet done. And I go back to sheet 1 now. I need to add the table. Not over there. Yep, right there. Okay, and then I need to go look for the dimensions. Or I'm actually checking the number of columns it is first. Okay. And instead of eyeballing it, I realize I have X and Y coordinates given. So I'm going to use those. Those were given on the exam. And there we have the position. And I'm going to edit the column widths later to make sure it looks neat. Now I'm looking for what I need to put in the boxes. Okay. We're going to start off with our index. Next up is part number. And then part description, I believe. Part name. And then the price and quantity. And at this point I realize I should probably be centering these, so I don't have to do it in the end, but I'm going to have to do the other ones. So I'm going back and centering these. And now I'm going to go add these parameters into the table. I'm going to make sure I do them for all of the cells. Attributes. Okay. Just trying to remember which ones they are here. It's kind of tricky to remember. Okay. And I think this is correct. I think I got it my first try here. Yep, and I'm going to go in here and trying to remember where they were. I'm looking for a report. There's report. There's our index. That's our first one. Or actually, yeah, I'm looking for which other ones are under report. And then that one's not going to be in report, actually. It's going to be under assembly. And the user defined here, we have for part number, I put it in with no space when I was making it a parameter. And the price is also user defined here. Okay, goes to your right. And then for the part name, I'm going to need to go back to assembly. And that is not user defined. That's actually, it's just name down below. So I'm going to look for that and click that. And I update these tables, and there we go. It's magic. I have all my columns filled out. And this isn't the most pleasing to the eye, so I'm going to fix the widths of each column. And I'm going, how do I do that again? It's not there. Nope. Still not there. And then I remember the bottom right is where I can do that. I can select the columns. And I'm just going to sort of eyeball this to make sure that they all look visually appealing. And I'm also going to center this information just like the drawing has. Trying to make it all as close to the drawing as possible. I'm going to want to center these. Okay, quantities are the last one. I'm going to test values here to make sure I can make the whole table line up. And that's going to need to be less. And that is not enough. So I'll try 1.05. And that is almost enough. And that's good enough for me. And finally here, I'm going to create the balloons. And at first I didn't exactly remember how to change where these balloons are pointing. It took me a couple seconds to figure out. I was also selected on these parts. I wasn't deselecting. There we go. Now I can move the balloons. Okay, and that's not going to end up being right. We'll change that in a second. I'm just sort of frustrated here. I'm like, why won't it move along the part? Showing me. Nope, that's definitely not how that happens. It's not going to work at that one either. Okay, I do remember I need to put that up there. But that's not going to change anything. And that's not going to do anything either. Okay, I'm sort of reading this message here on the bottom right. I also do remember I need to make these dots, filled dots. It doesn't help me move it around, but it will make them filled dots, and I'll eventually figure out how to move them around. So I'm going to make the other arrow that. And surprisingly enough, that is still not how you move it. I'm assuming it's not going to make it work. I was frustrated when making this. I was really confused. I didn't get to the balloons portion on the regular exam. Detach, you would think, is common sense, but that is not what it will do. That's not going to help either, because I already have balloons created. Nope. Good try though. Still nothing different, Anthony. Okay, that's not going to do anything either. Sorry for this big block of messing around. I forgot how to move the balloons to a different part of the part. Trying to jog my memory here. Okay, I think I'm almost there to remembering. And there we are. The right click and edit attachment. So I'm going to want to make those the same attachments that are on the drawing. I'm going to move that to the top. And then do the same thing for the other balloon. Okay, so I'm doing the same here with balloon number 2. And I'm going to put it over here. Make sure it's a spring part I'm pointing at. And there we are. And that's the right positions based off the drawing here. I'm going to fix these to make them dots. And that should do it. And I'm going to save this drawing file now and export the two as PDFs. And those are the two drawings for the assembly. Thank you for sitting through my likely very tedious video.